Hello, everybody. Welcome to our full body breathing session today. Okay, today what we're going to do is work on some specific patterns that are supposed to be associated with correct full body breathing. And hopefully, after working on the patterns, they'll feel a little bit more natural to us. Okay, so for this, we're actually going to start standing with the feet and the knees together. Okay, for example, my knees are a little bit bowed, so if I stand with the legs completely straight, you see my knees don't touch. But I need to bend the knees until the knees touch. Okay, now that I have the knees touching, the feet touching, I'm in a balanced position here. Okay, so we're going to work from this position for a little bit, and we're going to move pretty slowly with the breathing and try to sense inside of the body. Okay, so the first thing we want to look at is how the rotation of the legs can affect our breathing. Okay, already if it's hard for you to stay standing like this, this is pretty telling. This should be pretty easy to stay with the feet and knees together. For me, it's not the easiest position. For me, much easier to be out here. But I think that we should all be able to stand pretty comfortably like this with minimal effort. Okay, so we're going to practice for a little bit. But in the meantime, in the last few classes, we did a lot of wringing out the body with rotation to get good control over the rotation of the limbs. So what the basics we need to understand today is rotating the leg out, the heel comes in. And if we rotate the leg in, the big toe comes in. Right? If we do that together, we get the heels come together, rotating out, and the opposite, right? Rotating in, the big toes come together. Okay, now we can make effort in both of these directions from this position. So even standing, even though my legs are not going to change position, what I'm going to feel is that if I push the heels together, you see my legs bow out a little bit, they open again. And now when I push the toes together, as if trying to turn in, you see the knees press back together, and mostly I feel the big toes pressing towards each other, and the heels attempting to separate. Okay, you can make this movement very, very subtle. It doesn't have to be as big as I'm making it right now. In fact, we'll use a more subtle movement during the breathing. So here's our first coordination. We're just going to start to use your own rate of breathing. Okay, and as we breathe, as you inhale, you're going to turn the feet in, pushing the big toes towards each other and attempting to separate the heels. Okay, as you breathe in. As you breathe out, now you're going to push more of the heels together, rotating out slightly, feeling the big toes slightly separate. Again, it can be a very subtle, small movement. Okay, so let's get that coordination with the breathing going. Say maybe 10, 12 breaths together, getting all the time this coordination right. Okay, breathing in, rotating in. Breathing out, slight opening. Breathing in, turning in. I'm already demonstrating the upper body pattern. So if you want to just join in right away and start to mirror the legs with the arms, that's fine. We're going to do that in a second anyway. Breathing in, turning the limbs in. Turning out on the exhale. Good, we're going to start to build the pattern from this, okay? So here we go, we're going to add now some movement in the hands, okay? Breathing in, squeezing. Breathing out, opening the hands. This is all inside of that same pattern, still using the legs to turn in and out, the arms to turn in and out. Now adding the squeezing, breathing in. Good. Let's take a short break and evaluate what goes on at the pelvis when we make these movements. We've also talked about in the past the difference between arching the pelvis or tucking the pelvis. Right? Obviously, we want to find the middle. What's important to understand about finding the middle here is that the rotation of the legs should have an effect on our pelvis. Okay? And what we want to get is the correct coordination between the legs and the pelvis. That is, when the legs turn in with the big toes turning towards each other, we want to feel the pelvis actually tucks slightly, okay? And as we rotate open, the back of the pelvis is more likely to lift, okay? And as we rotate in, the pelvis tucks. This may not feel natural at first. If it doesn't, that's a really good sign that you need to work on this coordination. For example, if rotating the legs outwards makes you super tuck easily, and rotating inwards makes your back arch, even though this can feel natural and is an okay coordination in the body, it's not a great pattern for us to live in, okay, for many reasons. Every time we're breathing, then we're getting the wrong coordination, okay? So what we want to do is train the pelvis to tuck as we turn the legs in, okay? So that means we may need to work harder with the front of the abs so that as we turn the legs inwards, we're actually getting more of a tuck and less of a duck, okay? So let's resume our full body pattern here. And, yeah, okay, and so again, we're standing with the feet together, legs together, turning in, getting the pelvis to tuck under. You may feel more activation in your thighs than before. That's a good thing. Then breathing out, letting the legs open. So moving the heels towards each other. If you're struggling with the pelvic coordination, don't think too much about it, but you can try to imagine drawing up on the front of the pelvis as you breathe in. You may also start to notice that as we use the rotation in the limbs, it changes where we feel the activation in the body from front to back. As we tuck the pelvis, drawing up on the front of the abs, squeezing the inner thighs inwards, right, turning the arms in, this creates a lot of activation in the front of the body. And actually the back of the body, where most of the rib cage is, relax, making room for the air. Right? And then as we squeeze on the way out, bringing the heels more towards each other, right? Making that slight external drive. This is going to tighten the whole back of the body, right? You can imagine if you were to overdo the rotation of the body, this would really arch you backwards in the back, Right? So what we're looking to find is the subtle change of like a neurological massage from the front of the body to the back of the body, from the front of the body to the back of the body. And remember, the reason we're doing this internal stuff when we breathe is that we want some firmness in the abdominal wall so that when we breathe down with the diaphragm, it doesn't necessarily displace our organs. Instead, it has a firm organ column to rest on, which allows it to push our ribs open for us rather than distending our organs. That's a different type of breathing, more suited for relaxation. We're talking about healthy coordination for baseline breathing right now. Okay, so again, let's get back into this very tricky, complicated stuff here. Okay, so the legs turning in, pelvis is tucking, we're breathing in, breathing out the opposite. Good, we're gonna add now, we're gonna relax the arms, don't worry about these for now. But what we're gonna start to use is some tricks in the face to get a better coordination, okay? So as we breathe in, we want to close the eyes and feel the eyes squeeze a little bit, okay? This happens mostly kind of gently in the face. We're not going full on, okay? We're just getting the turn internal with the feet, tucking the pelvis, and breathing to close the eyes. They're squeezing, but not so hard that it affects my mouth. All right, the mouth and jaw is all relaxed here. I'm not going, all right, don't pull the jaw into it. Just close the eyes tightly and let the jaw relax, okay? This movement's accompanied by all the internal and inhales that we're doing. So here we go, continuing with the pattern, breathing in. And on the exhale, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to relax the eyes and we're going to tense the lips into an ooh shape. Getting our external pattern. Okay, take a second to really lock in the coordination of just the rotation in the legs, the correct tilting of the pelvis, and the movement of the face. Okay, this is going to take a few minutes to get down, so let's work through it together. Okay, again, standing comfortably. By now you should notice it's a little bit easier to stand this way than when we started. Okay, so here we go, squeezing the eyes, breathing in, tucking the pelvis, feet turning in, and the opposite. If you find the coordination is still very difficult, this can also be practiced laying on the ground. It's a little bit easier to feel it all come together that way. Good. Let's move into a sitting position to help build some of the same awareness with this stuff. When we're sitting, it's going to be a little bit easier to feel what's going on in the pelvis. I don't necessarily know if you need to see my feet here. They're just hanging out, doing the same thing as in standing. Okay, so the feet, ankles are together, the knees are together here. Okay. And sitting here, I'm going to try to see if I can feel the movement of the pelvis a little bit more clearly, right? So that as I turn in, breathing in, you can see from the side that it's not a huge movement. I'm not driving myself backwards and upwards. While these are also really great stretches and exercises, and they can easily help us learn the pattern much bigger, right? Breathing in. I'm much more interested in finding the subtleties of the relaxed version. And so as we sit here, now we're going to try to see if we can feel these movements inside of the body in a more relaxed position. Okay, so you can open up the legs to be a little bit more neutral. Right? We don't want any falling open of the legs though. Right? If you find the legs are naturally falling open, this is going to make it really hard for you to get the correct position turning in like that. Right? So if you need to be wider, you just need to get the feet wider than the knees, right? So that they can at least come in and out a little bit without completely flopping, okay? So find a position that the legs feel pretty balanced, and we'll just take the arms on the thighs here. Okay, we're gonna work a little bit harder with the face now. Remember, breathing in, we're squeezing the eyes, and breathing out, we're squeezing the lips. Here we go. See if you can feel some of the same activations going on in the pelvis, the hips, and down through the legs. This time, you don't necessarily try to make them happen. Only try to remember them and sense if they're still present while we breathe. But we are going to work hard with the face. Okay, here we go. Breathing into the eyes. Let's take a short rest with the face and pay attention to how the nostrils work. As we breathe in, if we breathe in too quickly or too aggressively, you can actually feel that the nostrils constrict themselves. They don't like to be overwhelmed like this. What they enjoy is breathing in slowly as if you were going to try to savor some good smell, right? Notice how if you breathe in like you're smelling something nicely, you're going to feel the nostrils automatically open up and make room for the air. See if you can notice the undulation of opening to the good smell and the closing of the nostrils on the exhale. right? Getting this full pumping even through the nasal cavity. Right, the closing is more of just a relaxation of the initial flare on the inhale. Now let's see if we can combine everything we've spoken about so far. All right, so we have not only breathing in the good smell to open the nostrils, but now we need to combine that with the closing of the eyes. All right, as we draw more of the pattern into it, including the lips closing on the exhale. And the proper rotation tilting in the pelvis. Remember, we're rolling backwards as we inhale, closing the eyes, opening the nostrils, and feeling the slight lift in the front of the abs. Great, now let's combine this into less of an undulation, more of the full body symmetrical pump, okay? So what we're gonna do is combine all the contractions we've worked on into one easy effort. So we're getting closing of the eyes and lips while we breathe in nicely through the open nostrils, okay? Here we go for this coordination. Relaxing everything on the way out, squeezing the eyes and lips closed on the inhale, allowing the nose to open nicely. You may notice that this helps make your posture get a little bit taller. If you have healthy connections through the body, you should also be noticing a lot of work getting done in the pelvic floor. Perhaps you didn't notice it at first, or maybe you noticed it a lot when we were standing with the legs together. See if you can notice some activation deep in the pelvic floor as we use these face muscles to help synchronize the whole body this way. Okay, so again, breathing in on the full contraction here and here, and just notice if you feel something down in the basement there. Releasing the way out. We can again include some movement of the hands here. Nice. Now, regardless of whether you were able to feel all the different connections and get all the right coordinations, I wouldn't be too concerned if some of these things felt unnatural for you at the moment. A lot of this comes from this book. I think this looks mirror image to you, but this is The Secrets of the Ring Muscles, Healing Yourself Through Sphincter Exercises by Paula Garbor. And the Paula method is widely recognized in Israel. It's got a nice foreword that basically she discovered these interesting connections in her body, and she started to treat people on her own and got good results. Eventually, she brought it to the medical community. There was enough skepticism, but somebody believed in her, and they trial and errored her stuff in a medical setting, and they found that this actually really helped people reclaim a lot of health inside of the body. The basic concept is that all of the sphincter muscles in the body, which we have many of we explored today, but also we have inside of the throat, the base of the jaw, inside of the stomach, most of the intestines. Anything that is a ring muscle is considered a sphincter. So our eyes are sphincters. So in that sense, what they discovered is that they share a neurological connection, which we were able to maybe explore a little bit today, right? If you notice, when you squeeze the eyes, you tend to feel more activation in the front of the pelvic floor. And if you squeeze the mouth, you tend to feel more activation in the back of the pelvic floor. And basically, by using sphincter muscles that we have good control over, we can start to recondition things that we don't necessarily have conscious control over, or have just lost conscious control over. So this was just a quick rendition or a sampling of some of the exercises from that book. So again, don't worry if some of it seemed unnatural or just confusing or whatever. You know, on the baseline, if we even just work with the eyes, breathing in, squeezing, breathing out, relaxing. Whether or not you feel your lower sphincter start to join in or not, you're still going to feel a lot more calm and get that nice sensation of release throughout the body as we open up and release the windows to the world, right? Or the windows to the soul in this case. Okay, everybody, take care. I think I'm going to be following through with this book for the next month, because some of the patterns are not natural to me. For example, when I turn the legs in, my pelvis tends to rotate forwards into the duck butt rather than the tucking. So according to this book, I have some miscoordination in my system. And that's the second time I've discovered that in my body. That pattern is also present in the somatics work that we took a short look at last week about the twisting of the arms and getting the legs to rotate in those nice patterns. They also use that same pattern of turning the legs in and tucking the pelvis. For me, that's extremely unnatural. So I'm hoping in the next month we can find out together that, yes, these books that I love so much actually are good for me. And hopefully some of my misalignments will go away. Okay, I'll follow up tomorrow with something along these lines. Okay, have a great day. Bye-bye.